Well, good evening. Can you raise your hand if you're still alive? Okay, that's enough people. Nice, nice. There's a little bit of a PSA. I'm terrified of stages, so I found a trick. I grab a beer and I put on sunglasses so I can't see your faces. So today we're not going to do a demo. There's no more math talk. Maybe later. All due respect with previous people. We're going to be talking more about cultural infrastructure of Web3 privacy in general. Sorry, I was going to say Web3 privacy now, but yeah, Web3 in general. And I'm Alina. As it's been mentioned, I'm a recovering shit poster. Still in recovery. Sometimes I relapse, and I do end up bringing my beer on stage. I am core at Web3 Privacy now, and we have formed a new task division, which is called Women in Web3 Privacy. And I would love to introduce you to Migle, who is an amazing activist and not a shit poster. She posts incredible content on her Twitter. You should really check her out. And go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say,
I think up. Yeah, let's switch.
I just also wanted to say a fun fact that between both of us, we create culture because at this very moment, with the passports that both me and Alina hold, we can't enter each other's countries. And that should tell you more than anything, because we together unite in culture and in a lot of different things, but we physically cannot enter each other's countries. So I like to call myself a cultural chameleon, because my life's goal was to bring impact through culture. And that manifested in me being an activist, a non-technical hacker, an actress, documentarian, ending up in a venture capital. But all of that, whatever I was morphing into, I always went back into my roots of academia, and that is media, culture, and cyber warfare. And when I was studying that, I all of a sudden found myself being a creative, cultural person in incredibly technical environments. And all of a sudden I realized I have a new passion of dismantling internally complex topics in a non-patronizing and culturally tangible ways. And that's why we think privacy should be way more open-minded and handled with care, handled with culture. And that's why we are working on our collective of Web3 Privacy Now.
So there is a collective that already exists, which is Web3 Privacy Now. And as I think most of you know, it's a collective. Actually, no, there's a way that I explain it to my friends that are kind of familiar with crypto. So you know how some collectives or events, they get money from a sponsor, a lot of money from a sponsor, and then they put the branding logo right here in front of your faces, and it's like, yes, buy their token, get the product. We don't do that shit. We basically, thoroughly vet our potential allies and potential sponsors. Oh, I see someone dancing in the back. Yes. But we thoroughly vet our allies, and we actually make sure that their values align with ours. And we don't take money from anyone. We are very
non-profits.
Yeah, exactly. We're a non-profit, and it's very, collective in the end. And a lot of people have mentioned that they've been to so many Web3 Privacy Now meetups, but they don't know exactly what we do, which I think might be the whole point, because privacy shouldn't be boring talks. Privacy shouldn't be just the tech. It should also be a vibe. It should be vibe curation. And in Web3 Privacy, we do both.
And as an example, some of the meetups of Web3 Privacy Now are happening when big conferences are happening and big venues, expensive rooftop parties are happening. We're hosting our events in the park.
Don't forget about the yachts.
But we're hosting our events in the park where people can come, sit down in a circle and talk about what truly matters. And that's what we think culture is at the end of the day. But when Web3 Privacy Now existed,
it still exists.
and exists, a wonderful woman decided to create a Women in Web3 Privacy. And at the time, we got a lot of interesting questions and a lot of patronizing questions. Why do you need to exist? Why woman needs an external force? And here's the thing. Women in Web3 Privacy, and when I say women, I mean it with an X, because X represents an allies, which is all of you here today that would support us. X represents transgender, non-binary, and everyone in between, how they feel it. But we are a task force that our goal is not to exist. I wish I didn't need to come here and lobby every day and be an activist for gender rights. I wish I didn't need to talk about it every single day and explain to human beings why me going to hackathons as a woman can be intimidating. Well, not me, I've been doing that for a while, but for a new woman perhaps. So goal is not to exist of our collective, but until privacy, security, and human rights are universal, we need safe spaces for the most vulnerable. Because if we are building protocols that are supposed to protect us and save us, and we don't have people that are building them who are supposed to be protected, eventually they're going to fail.
Web3 is dominated by 3 M's, especially Web3 privacy: men, money, and math. It's too much of all 3, and not all of them are channeled in the right way. So the whole goal, okay, not the whole goal, but a big part of this goal of women in Web3 privacy is to actually shift away from the sweaty nerds in the basement narrative and then to make it into a cooler, more accessible space where people can come in and they feel like this space is for everyone, because sometimes I have to drag my non-Web3 friends to Web3 Privacy Now meetups, being like, please just come. Sometimes there's blackmail involved. And then as soon as they get there, they're like, oh my God, this is cool. This is like a random meetup, and everyone's kind of on the same page with trans rights or queer groups, or there's not, it's very rare that you meet like a proper Trumpy at one of our events, although that also happens sometimes, unfortunately. And yeah, just bring in a bit more diversity, but also diversity where it doesn't feel like, oh no, we need this amount of women at this, at this side of the audience, or we need this amount of women at a panel. It's more of a soft landing for people that are not necessarily nerds, for people that are adjacent to this culture.
Exactly, because when I brought my friends who are hardcore activists in the Netherlands that lobbied against Shell, they would tell me stories that when they were having their secret meetups, and by the way, they were the first party of activists that won a very big lawsuit against Shell, for them only to follow the EU regulations. They were protecting themselves from cyber attacks by putting their phones into a freezer. So that is the level of the knowledge that they had. And imagine inviting that type of a person to a lot of our hackathons and events. Like, they want to learn, they want to understand, but perhaps the culture that we're surrounding around it needs to be a bit more shifted to including the most vulnerable members of the society that are in a radical need of privacy and security.
I think at this moment we have enough infrastructure. We need to start building a bit more culture. So making it a little bit more human, making it a little bit more, yeah, human. Human is the right word.
And I invite everyone to look into this philosophical belief of Scott, which is a social construct of technology. So technology doesn't just shape society, the society shapes the technology. Because even the most secure protocols fails if it's built without the people it's meant to protect, right? So if we don't involve the activists, if we don't involve the most vulnerable people that will need the tools that we're building, are we actually building something that has the longevity to survive in the future and serve us as human beings? At Women Web3 Privacy, we do a lot of different things. One of them is currently we're conducting empirical research, which I do invite you to join and be part of it. We're collecting information and stories from both women, men, transgender, everyone in between about your experience both in digital and physical spaces of living in Web3. We've already started this, and reading those is ridiculous. We've heard some stories that I can promise you would jaw your jaw down, simply because, especially some of you cis men, if you don't have a feminine energy around you, or you don't speak because certain topics are indeed taboo, we are in a professional setting, you perhaps don't know, and really excuse my French, that some women at hackathons are being offered to suck some cock in order to win some bounties. That is a reality. I get that. And I'm resilient enough because I built that strength. But how can I invite my friends knowing that they might be facing that when there's no infrastructure for them to feel safe? I'm not saying that men are not experiencing the same, and I'm not saying that we're not doing enough to tell men and to break the barriers of taboo and to make them our allies. Because I think many of you that are sitting here and willing to listen to us yap about this, you are an ally. You support us and you want to do more, but perhaps you just don't know how. So come, join us, and then we will just figure it out together. And And a sisterhood initiative is something that we believe that you're all aware. When you enter our industries, it can be so incredibly complex, even if you've been in a DeFi and you now want to enter DeSci. And one of the most wonderful things is connecting with other human being that's already been there, done that, will take you by your hand and just maybe take you to the hackathon, maybe take you to the conference, or just have weekly calls with you to catch up and say, hey, this is a good tool to use, and this is not really a good tool to use. You probably shouldn't join this community, or this one is really a good one. So that's what we do. We do a sisterhood matching. Any of you can apply. You can become a bigger or a smaller sister in a sense. You can help support each other, and we will try to match you based on many different beliefs that you have. So we'll have a QR code at the end, and you're welcome to all to join our sisterhood initiative.
Also, sisterhood initiative is not about just like guiding people through, but also giving them a little bit of cultural tips. Like during hackathon, at night, people are usually locked in or crashing out, so maybe not the best time to ask them, important questions. Or if you see somebody having a bit of a autistic withdrawal with, headphones in, maybe don't ask them 18 questions, or don't make eye contact with Vitalik. That's always a good one. And now I got your attention. So we're going to be implementing Safe Space Initiative at Web3 Privacy Now Hackathon this weekend. And Safe Space Initiative actually came a couple of months ago from a random encounter I had running a hackathon a few months ago, where a young developer girl came up to me crying about a really shitty comment that she received from a male. And the thing is, he made that comment as a joke. And I can see how it is a joke, but at the same time, that's not the kind of joke you should make. And in my head, I don't think it's all men. It's not, also as a collective, we're not, of course, exclusive only to women, but I do think that a lot of men in the space are a bit uneducated, sometimes a bit autistic, sometimes not sure which boundaries they can cross or not. So this is what we do. We bring up this conversation. And to make events a little bit better for especially young women that enter the space, this is where Safe Space Initiative was born, where we're collecting all the data that we can, all the information that we can, so we can create a toolkit to basically layer on top of existing events. And Web3 Privacy Now Hackathon is our playground. So this is our first launch, where we're going to be integrating a couple of, soft things like a little matcha latte corner or a little, do-it-yourself merch table, and facilitate conversations between men and women, and also in general being like, so how was your experience entering this space? Because I think not a lot of us had a soft landing. Do you remember your first Web3 event? Did you feel a bit intimidated? Did you feel a bit out of place? Everybody feels that way. And most people feel that way, at least. And this is something that we want to make, safer, not just for, a little bit of maybe accidental harassment here and there, but also for someone who is absolutely spiraling out in an autistic, moment of, I just need to wear my headphones and rock myself for 10 minutes without somebody asking too many questions. So that's what we want to provide. We want to provide that safe space for people like that. Not people like that, but for people having those moments. And if you're here over the weekend, come see us. And if you're going to be hacking, we're going to be there throughout the entire hackathon. But if not, we're having an open space integration around 4 p.m. on Sunday, where everybody is welcome to come. There's a link to Luma also on this. This actually leads to Linktree, but I think it leads to Linktree.
This is where you can donate to our collective. You can submit the tally form where we're collecting the data. Of course, you can do that anonymously. We will work with inclusivity managers, hackathon organizers, HR, researchers and actual academics to produce an industry report where we stand in right now and offer practical solutions. What can we do and how can we move forward? So if you can submit that, that would be amazing. We are really underground collective that we go far with very little amount of money. So if any of you have any of the shit coins in your wallet and you're like, you know what, I don't know what to do with that, this is what you can do with that. Just ship it to us and we'll take care of it.
Well, we recently just asked for a donation specifically for our Versal subscription, so I think that should give you a little bit of a ballpark of what we need.
Yes, finally our website is up and online. So at the end of the day, we really are not just about women. We are about facilitating culture, because of course all of you even choose yourself to go to the events that are not just as rigid All of you need a starter of a conversation, whether that would be a cute flushy. Like if some of you were at a DEF CON, I'm sure you remember the crazy thing that happened with the frogs and how everyone was just absolutely running around and scanning and wanting to get the hats on top. That's culture for you, right? And try to explain that for someone that is outside of this world, how that works. Now, let's make sure that the culture includes all of the different people in our industry and invites not only the coders and the technical people, but the activists, the philosophers, the researchers, the academics, and etc. Thank you so much. We hope you join us.
I don't see enough people scanning. Before you clap, scan. Come on, scan, scan, scan. I only saw you scanning, that's it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.